audience here who really wanted to hear the fullness of a quote I used yesterday from Toni Morrison. So I'm just going to read that from my computer, and then I'll step back down. I'll try to be loud enough. But this is a beautiful way of, to me, of how we can take in A Course of Love. It's from an essay titled The Dancing Mind. There is a certain kind of peace that is not merely the absence of war. It is larger than that. The peace I am thinking of is not at the mercy of history's rule, nor is it a passive surrender to the status quo. The peace I am thinking of is the dance of an open mind when it engages another equally open one, an activity that occurs most naturally, most often, in the reading, writing world we live in. Then she asks, what is so important about this craft? A craft that appears solitary, but needs another for its completion. I know now, more than I ever did, that I need that intimate, sustained surrender to the company of my own mind while it touches another's, which is reading. That I need to offer the fruits of my own imaginative intelligence to another without fear of anything more deadly than disdain, which is writing. And we could fill in dialogue there. But I love her recognition that what appears solitary needs another for its completion.
Yes, absolutely. Amen. Okay, thank you. And so let's sustain surrender. That's the great words.
Back to the living room.
Yeah, back to the living room. To share that piece because I didn't have it on paper, but I had it on the computer, so I just pulled it up for my friend over here. But I am very happy to share it with everyone because of that sense of how we will read. And you had a question for me?
Yes, when you are receiving, how does that transmission come into physicality? Is it like automatic typing? Is there dialogue and you write down what you hear? Can you describe some of that?
Yeah. How many of you have books here? Do you have your book?
In the car.
Okay. Okay.
Is it the same one?
No, but if you have, well, anything that you can open, it doesn't really matter. Just for that, I'm just trying to give a sense of a feeling. So I was going to read this anyway. I'm going to use this as an example of how I would receive. Okay? So this is from the 4th treatise, where Jesus says, "It is the truth that you have now learned all that can be learned from the state of consciousness, this state of consciousness, and that you have given your willingness to learn in a new way. The new way is here. If you are now to learn directly, you are also now to share directly. This is the way of relationship. Means and end are one, cause and effect the same." So if you were reading this right now to yourself, okay, you do this all the time. You're reading those words. They're coming into your mind, and you're hearing them like somebody is speaking them to you. I mean, really, it's as simple as that almost. It didn't have any big, except for the occasional extreme. I had 2 extreme experiences. If what you want to hear about is my experience, I can tell you that. But it was as if I was It's the same feeling you have when you're reading a book. That intimate, sustained surrender to a good book. And it was just flowing through my mind. And because I've been, I had been a secretary, I had been on computer, I was a great typist. I could hear that and I could just go with it without hardly any flow. And it's so interesting when you think of Helen Schuckman doing shorthand. If she had to write it out in longhand, she wouldn't have caught it. So there is some sense of, there's no reasoning of why Jesus, that we can see why Jesus chooses who he would.
I didn't know, I was pinned in my bed and my head was cocked to the side and I saw a handle of the knife. And I was just quivering like crazy. And this man said, "If you be quiet, I will not hurt you." And I said, "Do you promise? Do you promise? Do you promise me?" At least 200 times. And finally he said, "Stay in your bed for 30 minutes. I'm getting up." So I had no concept of time. Finally I thought, I'm going to meet my maker now. I'm not going to be a sitting duck and just lay here and wait, because I never heard him open the door. So I got up. I had seen my funeral, I had seen my mother mourning, I had seen all of it. And I thought, he will be the last person I see. And so I got up and creeped out. All the cupboard doors were open everywhere, the medicine cabinet. There was no person there. He was gone. So fast forward, that was years ago. I finished A Course of Love. I'm in dialogue with Jesus, and I said, "Jesus, you have got to be kidding about fear. You know how I am. I have felt tremendous fear." You know what he said? He said, "Mary, go back, tell me." So I relate the story. I go back, I tell him what I told you. I still had the fear. Now, let me tell you something about fear. If you want to solidify anything, you have fear that becomes solidified and frozen in you. That is what your block is. That's how fear, I believe, at least in my case, gets blocked. Well, here I am with these blocks. I don't know what Jesus is doing. So I go back, I relate the story again. And something starts kind of happening. I tell the story. He goes, "Go back again." I go back again. I'm getting goosebumps just sharing this. I go back again, and I realize I didn't have any fear. I had gone to meet, in a sense, death. And I did it because it was something in me got strong, Something happened to me. And then that miracle happened. And Jesus said, "Let me tell you one thing. This man that held you in bed had never, ever kept his word. You are when you asked him, 'Do you promise?' he kept his word. This healed him as much as it did you."
Wow.
Isn't that amazing?
That is amazing.
Isn't that amazing how Jesus came back after multiple decades? Really, in Jesus.
Well, you didn't tell him why I had anything to do with it.
What do you mean? There's so much you have to do with. That's what part?
So she was over one day and saying something about this experience, and I said,
Oh, yes. Yes.
I said, "Mary, who on earth would ever say, 'Promise me, promise me, promise me'?"
I didn't, I had never thought of that. Quite looked at it that way. It was just amazing. This is how we work. Not only with Jesus, in my case, in this goodness that comes out. He didn't do it for me. He made me, by his suggestion, go back. He wasn't going to say, this is going to turn left here, go on, you
I'm
know.
a Pollyanna since I'm a little girl.
You what?
Pollyanna, I see things that I've been made fun of for doing that.
Oh.
But that's actually what's happening. I see such beautiful things. It's so moving me. I know I'm changing everything in my life because I keep seeing it differently. And I know that's who I was when they made fun of me.
Yeah,
But this is who I am
yeah,
when I stand in it.
exactly.
Yes. And the feminine, we are standing up. And this is the new time of creation. I mean, if this world is going to be a world that we will want our children and grandchildren and our beautiful mountains and trees, we want this all to be here. The feminine is the rising that is going to bring all the forces together to care for life. Yes, dear.
I see a big change in the men. When I look at the way it was when I was raised, my dad versus with my children, and now I see my sons, how they share in the nurturing and the caring. So the feminine side of the men are coming out.
Yes, if
And-
I'm not clear, I'm sorry. Yes.
Yeah, I just wanted to acknowledge that because I see a big difference in that, that they're there at the birth and sometimes they take care of the newborns while the mother rests. And that's a change for a lot of us, you know. So I see that feminine energy coming alive in the men.
So, this whole weekend, what I noticed is that every one of you presenters shared some really deep, horrific, painful experiences, and I would bet that everybody in here has had similar stories.
Yes.
And I would also probably make that most of us have felt alone and different, feeling different most of our lives. And I want to declare we were different, but it was good.
Yes.
And now we're finding out how we can use our difference to make a difference in this unshaping of
Yes.
the world.
Well, and our differences, our differences are our true gifts. They're the true north, the point of originality. This is where we need to be. And we think we're an oddity at times.
Yes.
Why am I, like this story we just shared, you know, it is imperative that we extend who we truly are. Can you be anything other than? No, you see beauty everywhere. What's wrong with that?
Yes.
It's the Blessed Virgin Mary.
Divine
And he talks about the merging of the masculine and feminine. And I was still not interested. I was like, okay. You know, the next treatise came and it was talking about callings, you know. Oh, yeah, I'm all there with callings, you know, and it wouldn't have been right for me to try to get on Mary's path. You know what I mean? It's like this is one of the key things I've learned is that my inner being has a trusting way of knowing where I'm to go. And that was not in my cards right then. But then when I got interested in it, a couple years ago, Mary and I started talking about her experiences again, and then there was the flood of the feminine. So it's not until a couple years ago that the feminine was coming to me, but then it was time. And so what Mary and I really wanted to try to support and be encouraging of is one of the things about the way of learning being gone is, you know, if I had stopped there, if I'm receiving on the way of Mary or receiving in that first treatise about that, and I gotta stop and understand this. You know, we might not have had it for many years. And we all have things that we resonate with, that it's like they capture us and we just want to go, you know? I think that's what Jesus is saying.
Self, ego self. And then the other definition of imaginal, I just looked it up, is it has to do with imagination, image. But this new time we're in is now beyond the dissolution, because with all that gone now, it's time for the manifestation of the new that you were talking about. So we're going to be receiving that probably in image form, but now we're pure enough to manifest it. And that will be in form also.
And elevated form.
Elevated form.
Yes,
now.
yes.
Yeah. I think it's going to be something unstructured about the new. This is
Yes.
my definite sense, is that you don't make a thing out of what comes out of the imagination. It does not become the new thing. It doesn't become the new thing that's studied. It doesn't become a new structured church. It's fluid. There's something fluid about it.
Mhm.
It's not going to be three-dimensional form the way we used to. It's
Yes,
going to be multi-dimensional.
yes.
Yes.
And we want to talk about it. We don't have the language. We don't have the language for it yet. We're finding the language every day.
Because I just said that. Yeah.
Yes.
Is it analogous to formlessness?
I think it is in a certain sense without taking away individuality. Because my strong sense is that the very sense that each of us exist because we were created to exist. We exist because we are here to be creators. That's my feeling out of this. We are here to be creators. And creators of the new. I mean, I don't know how much more exciting this can be. I cannot convey it with the same language that someone with Christina's background has. Or, you know, there's going to be all kinds of different backgrounds that will see this in different ways.
We need each voice.
We need each voice.
Each perspective.
Exactly.
And if anyone wants to read my voice this year, just go to my website and
Yes.
look at Indra's Net. You can find
Is that on
the writings have arisen by gatherings of people who are clustered. And the inspiration came from those writings, and they're all from 1st of January till a week ago was my last writing. And they're all different aspects that needed to be felt together. But that's just one language, one way, blending science, quantum science, you know, the Course of Love, Course of Miracles, I mean, it's all there. But everybody will find their own language.
Yeah, and we need
And
all
will cluster in their
voices.
own way.
All
Exactly.
voices.
Exactly.
Because people have different aspects.
Yeah. No one has the language for the multidimensional
No.
world. I mean, Jesus said, we don't know, whether we will know as we co-create it. I mean, that's, I'm paraphrasing, but it's like, no one can tell us, we're doing this together.
Well, and that's coming up with our lives. We can't find the words. There is something that is there.
And then
And
the words land.
we keep going like this.
But
And
you do. You found unshaping the world. You did find the
yes,
world.
I did.
It
It will
arrived.
come when it comes.
That's true. It lands
That's
as it wants
true.
to land.
That's true. Yeah. And she,
You can't force it.
Exactly.
You know, Joshua said that he was in the world but not of it. And so I kind of like, I don't quite know what that understands, about what that really means. But that, to me, it's sort of like, we will be in the world but not of it. We will experience many dimensions. So, yes, we can still be in form if we so desire, but we can also leave this. I think it's just fluid.
You're not so invested.
Yeah, it's like fluid. It's just fluid.
that's such a good word.
Yeah.
Lead your thought.
And it's choice in the moment, because
Yes.
that's what being in the present is.
Right, right.
The quantum
Exactly.
moment is infinite possibility.
Yes.
Right.
Light is in waves.
And maybe
So
we could be
choose
in-
to collapse it into form.
And maybe we could be in form and in another dimension all at the same time in many
Yeah, but you don't
dimensions.
try to hold on to it.
That's
Actually, the piece I was going to
You're
willing to die every moment
Yes.
Yeah.
to the new moment.
Yeah.
light, love, energy, that's all.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's another thing too that I was feeling too, is that this transformation in the moment is as within, so without. Like Christina was talking about, it happens in the now moment. There's no world or reality that is separate from us. It's like, it's not I'm here and there's a world out there.
Right.
So, as it says, both in A Course in Miracles and A Course of Love, cause and effect are the same. Means and end are the same. And as within, so without. So, as the internal transformation happens, we become, as Day 10 says, is it Day 10, power and the 40 days, how as we become love within, love is the cause, and that will be what will be reflected without. So the power of love as cause will be the effect and it's never separate. There is no reality that is independent from what's happening within us. And that is a huge step to even take. And for me, the experience comes, I've had these experiences where I'm in a flow state and there's no time. Yes. And that is when I experience this complete collapse of duality, where I can there is no within, no without. It's just all one flow state. And it's a timeless moment, and I like to call it, the holy instant. I like to feel, to me, what I came up with is a phrase, I shared it with Glenn, that maybe this time outside of time that the Course of Love talks about will be one sustained holy instant. Who knows? We don't know. Like Christina said, we don't even have words for it. But to me, when I really experience this flow state of just being in total, complete presence in this now moment, and where everything is illuminated, and I just feel this, I don't know, it's a connection with everything, a relationship with everything. It's a timeless moment, and I feel like that's the time outside of time. I don't know how to explain it. I'm trying to, but maybe it's a mystical experience, like John talks a lot about mystical experiences, but whatever it is, there seems to be no thinking and there's no time involved with it. Okay, so I'm thinking. Thank you.
My language, but I feel like, and I'm a very devoted student of the Course in Miracles. I'm reading A Course of Love. In the Manual for Teachers, I get the sense that he's training us to be co-creators with God, and that we're to be miracle workers. He uses that term. And my husband and I are noticing in our life, after 12 years of study groups and all kinds, trying to. My first Course in Miracles teacher said, take that meditation into your whole day. And so that's what I do, and I feel like I'm conversing all day long with Holy Spirit, Jesus, whoever your teacher is. And as we work miracles in our personal life, I feel like we're moving towards a mass miracle that we will all join together. And your words for it may be different from mine, but the intention and the willingness and the miracles are so easy. I mean, it seems like the words try to make it so complicated. But Spirit just propels me. I just have this willingness and this gratefulness. And I know He's not just pushing me. He's pushing all of us. He's not pushing us. He's propelling us. And we're going at our speeds. And there's going to be a mass miracle, and that will be the unshaping. And that will deliver us into heaven on earth, the real world, the new world.
And the Course of Love talks about that.
And that sense of flow is so important.
And the Course of Love describes it. Danny, you were asking about what happens next to the butterfly. Just remember that when you pick up that yellow piece of paper and the quote is there. It says, go forth as permeable energy. Right now, whether you like it or not, our particles are flowing into each other.
Exactly.
Yes, good iron particles are flowing in and
Sort
out.
of like sleeping with each
other.
Your dance at 6 is great.
You're a Unity minister in Baltimore?
I was.
You were?
I was just
Please,
filling in.
anybody who needs to get to lunch, don't feel bad about getting up to go? Or-
Yeah, and just take a second. Yeah. In the Course of Miracles, actually, Jay.
you.